Oh, this is good. So guys, look at the answer choices for this question. Question number 21. Notice how this looks different from the previous question, right? Look at the answer choices here. Right? Notice the to enter and entering here. And then for the next question, it's still being tested on verbs, right? But now notice how the verbs of the answer choices look different, right? So guys, this is going to be awesome. This question appears kind of back to back. So guys, for this, whenever I see the future tense, will double or will enter, will whatever, enter any other verb, right? Will be, will sing. Whenever I see that as one of my answer choices, I know that I'm being tested on verb tenses, or at least that's one of the things that I'm being tested on. Now, that's really helpful, right? Because if I know I'm being tested on verb tenses, it's going to affect the types of things that I'm looking for in the passage, right? So guys, I do want to tell you guys a little bit about what are called context clues, right? A context clue is basically context just means the surrounding information, right? So every correct answer, every question on the SAT has important context clues. In other words, there's some information in the passage that you need to help you to solve this question correctly, right? Otherwise, you're just guessing. And so context is king on the SAT, right? You have to know what types of context clues to look for. And that's the biggest question, right? What context clue do I need to solve this question, right? So each of these question types or concepts, so if the SAT is testing you on commas and appositives, for example, you have certain context clues to look for there. Versus if they're testing you on verb tenses, you have other things that you're looking for, right? Other context clues that you're looking for. For the previous question, we looked at verb forms, right? But we're looking at sentence structure. So the context clues that were important for sentence structure were subject, verb, and complete thought, right? Like your independent clauses and not, you know? And so being able to identify the context clue, right, is going to be absolutely critical for you, right, to solving these questions correctly. Now, you're in luck because we just covered a verb question for sentence structure and I talked about the context clues there. So now I'll talk about the context clues that you need to know for verb tenses. Okay, so there's two context clues that I'm really looking for. And if you're not sure what I mean, so if you're not sure what I'm saying, context clues. There's just again, context just means surrounding information, and clues are just clues, right? But clues come in the form of words, right? Or punctuation marks on the SAT passages, okay? So there's two context clues that I'm looking for verb tenses. One of those is what I call time references, right? References to time, right? Whether I'm, saying things like today or next week or yesterday, references to time. The second context clue is other verbs, right? Because if I have to decide what verb tense to use, I might want to check out how the writer used other verbs, right? Did the writer use other verbs in the present tense or other verbs in the past tense? So that can also give me a nice little clue as to what verb tense this verb should be written in. Okay, so those are the two most important context clues to help you to answer verb tense questions correctly. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So in this passage, reads, formed in 1967 to foster a political and economic stability within the Asia-Pacific region, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations was originally made up of 5 members: Thailand, the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. By the end of the 1990s, the organization has doubled its initial membership. Okay, so notice how, looking for the time clue here, notice how the sentence that the underlined portion is a part of, right, has a context clue here. You want to look for these time references not in the sentence that the underlined blank is a part of, not in a previous sentence, right? Because I know I have in 1967, but I want to focus on by the end of the 1990s here. So look for the time references in the sentence that the underlined portion is a part of, right? Nextly, right? So I know that by the end of the 1990s, you have to know what this means, right? Or how to use it. So when you say by the end of the time, right? You're basically, if I draw a timeline here, let's say that this is going to be now, like the present, today. And then here we have the 1990s, right? The end of the 1990s. So that's going to be like before it hits 2000, right? And then, so when you say something like by the end of the 1990s, you're basically saying everything before the 1990s leading up to the 1990s. As soon as you get to the end of the 1990s, the event stops right here. It stops, right? So it doesn't kind of carry over into after the 1990s, yeah, and into the present. So it kind of stops. Okay, so you have to understand how time references or time phrases are used first and foremost. But that's a good one to know, you guys, because here's why. Whenever you see the, by the end of something, I already know that my correct answer is going to be the past perfect had doubled, right? I kind of explain kind of why. Okay, so I already know that the correct answer is B, but let's unpack this further because I want to teach you guys, I want to give you guys some good foundational knowledge in this video. So yeah, let's do it. So first of all, because you know that the event kind of finishes in the past, right? You know that like doubles doesn't make any sense, right? Because doubles, this is a present tense verb, right? And we know that the event, the organization doubles its membership, doubling the membership, that event already finished, right? Because it was done by the end of the 1990s, right? So we know that the present tense verb is going to be wrong. We also know that answer choice D, will double, is the future tense. We know that's going to be wrong as well because future refers to things that haven't happened yet, right? So if we're looking at a timeline here, we have the now, the present. This is going to be the end of the 1990s. And then we have here the future, right? So the future is going to be any point here. It's going to be basically beyond things that happen now, right? Or in the present. So these are things that haven't happened yet. But again, that doesn't make any logical sense, right? Because again, we notice the time clue, right? The time reference. So looking for this context clue is going to be really helpful for you. Now, the hardest part is between answer choice A and B. So this is where a lot of students don't know the difference, right, of how to use has doubled versus had doubled. So the first thing that you want to know is that answer choice A here, this is called the present perfect tense. The present perfect tense. Answer choice B is called the past perfect tense. Okay, so you do want to know how these verb tenses are used on the SAT. So let's start with the past perfect. So the past perfect is used to indicate that an event finished before another past event or before a past point in time. Right. So let's draw our timeline again. And so here we have our present tense, right? The now. So the past perfect again is to indicate events that finished in the past, but before another past event or a past point in time, right? So here, so let me give you guys an example of this. If I say something like before I arrived at the airport, right, the plane had taken off, right? So here we have two events that occurred in the past, right? My arrival at the airport and the plane taking off, right? So the past perfect is going to be used for the event that occurred first, right? So the past perfect is used, which event occurred first? Did my arriving occur first or did the plane taking off occur first? Right? Oh, the plane taking off occurred first. Right? Oh, so because the plane taking off occurred first, you want to say the plane had taken off right, before I arrived, right? Because it was already gone by the time you got there. Okay, so that's how you would use past perfect, right? So applying that, why this is correct in this case is, some of you guys might be able to see it, the event is going to be doubling its membership, right? That's the event that's occurring, right? The doubling of the membership, right? So they're basically saying that this event occurred before this past point in time, right? So we know that the 1990s is a past point in time because it's before now, right? That's what a past point in time means, right? And so when we say by the end of the 1990s, we're basically saying, like I said, right, everything that occurred before the 90s leading up to the 90s. But as soon as you get to the end of 1990, so like December 31st, 1999, right? 11:55, 11:56, 11:57, before it gets to the new year, right? Before it hits the year 2000, so as soon as we get to the year 2000, it stops, right? So this is where the doubling event, right, is no longer being considered, right? It stops there. That's where that's how the past perfect is used. Because now we're no longer talking about the membership size, right? How big it is at any point beyond 1999, right? So in 2000, 2001, we're not talking about that anymore, because the event's already done, okay? So that's how you would use past perfect, right? So remember that whenever you see the phrase by the, and then some kind of event or time period, right? So if I say by 1999, right? If I say by the time I graduated, right? So whenever they give you that type of phrase, you know that you're going to use the past perfect, right? Always the case. Okay. Now, what about the present perfect? So, how do we use the present perfect? Well, there's going to be two uses that you want to be familiar with. There's a lot of different uses for present perfect, but you just have to know two of the main ones. The most important one that you have to know for the SAT, this is going to be the most common one, is if I draw a timeline, the present perfect is going to be used to talk about an event that started in the past, right? It started somewhere in the past, right? And it continues into the present. Right, so this event started sometime in the past, right? It started sometime in the past, and then it kind of continues into the present. So it has this sort of like continuity of time, right? Where the event is still kind of happening to this day. Okay, that's one of the uses of present perfect, and that's the one that you have to be familiar with the most. It's the most commonly used one, right? So think about it. If I said, I have lived in Hawaii since 2023, basically means that the event, my living in Hawaii, started in the past, 2023, and then it kind of continues into this day, right? So it kind of continues into the present. So think about present perfect. You're thinking, okay, started in the past, now it still continues today. Started in the past, continues today, right? So think about it like that. So now that's how you know that this is not going to be correct, right? Because we're already saying by the end of the 1990s. So we're stopping the event, right? Before we get to today, right? So this is why you can't use present perfect. Okay, the second use of present perfect is to talk about an event that happened at some unknown time in the past. It happened sometime in the past. We don't know when, right? So that's another use of present perfect, right? So if I say something like, oh, yeah, I have met Barack Obama, right? So I'm telling you that I met him. So this event happened sometime in the past, but we don't know exactly when, right? Now, as soon as I mention when I met Barack Obama, I can no longer use present perfect. I have to use then the simple past tense. So if I say in 1999, then I can't say I have met Barack Obama, right? If I say during my teenage years, I can't use I have met Barack Obama, right? I have to use a simple past tense. I met Barack Obama because now I'm specifying the time period. I'm letting you know when this event happened, okay? So those are the two most common uses of present perfect. Now you can just check, right? So that's going to be really useful because now with that knowledge, don't just hold on to the knowledge by yourself, use it, right? Now you can actually use your knowledge to check, right? Check to make sure, right? Is the reading passage or is that sentence, right? Talking about an event, right? That happened in the past, but is still continuing again today, right? If it isn't, then you can cross it out for sure. Okay, so this is why you know that A is going to be wrong. The correct answer is going to be B, the past perfect tense. Awesome. I'll see you guys in that next video. Make sure to always stay curious, never stop learning. I just got to make sure to say that in you guys. Take care. See you guys.